Hey guys, welcome to Martial Mentality. I'm your host Delmar Miner, and today I have with me Joseph Blackwelder and Mr. Brian Cobble. How you guys doing today?
I'm back.
Doing outstanding.
Great. So we're going to talk about traditional martial arts versus modern martial arts.
Ooh.
So
Controversy.
yes.
All right, Internet, I'm going to offend you today.
You realize once we do get popular, that's going to be bad. We're going to be brawling in the comments.
Listen, okay. Hey, look. I'm all for a fight.
Look, I left these out for a reason.
Right. Go ahead. Leave your comment.
So
No.
I guess before we really dive into this topic, let's go ahead and expound on what
What you mean?
traditional martial arts is. Joe, you go first.
Oh, man. That's
Oh,
a
wait,
tough
okay.
question. I almost feel like I'm not even qualified. But to me, when you say that question, I can't tell you a year in history that it became modern. I can't, I'm not able to do that. But to me, it just simply means like now we have all this sport in combat fighting. Our reasons for fighting are different. We're not necessarily at war out here fighting with weapons, that kind of thing.
Survival is not the issue.
Right. So that changes how we train, nowadays, let's just jump right into this. Yeah. You get all these people who say like, you said this a minute ago, boxing, Muay Thai, MMA, those are the ways to go. Those are the only things that work. And
Don't forget jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu. Yep. Jiu-jitsu. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because they're going to destroy you
yeah,
in
they're
the
coming
comments.
in. Yeah, they're going in. And I'm actually training a little bit of that now. But so, and they forget about all these other systems that were in place well before any of those even started.
Right.
What is it? Greco wrestling is one of the first ones.
One of the
Greco-Roman
oldest.
wrestling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You got
Swai Jiao.
Swai Jiao.
Swai Jiao is so old.
That article I sent the other day, the first one that it even mentioned as far as history was Swai Jiao.
Swai Jiao.
They were at
Yes.
war. The samurai were learning Swai Jiao.
And if you don't know what Swai Jiao is, it's Chinese wrestling.
Right. Samurai were Japanese, but still they took that form of wrestling into their military training, apparently.
Yeah, the history is that nobody in karate likes to talk about is it all came from Okinawa, and you know where they got it from?
Right.
China.
Right, China. Yep. So to me, when you say traditional versus modern, martial arts go back as long as people have existed, I feel like. So it's just a matter of how you train. Maybe they weren't sparring with headgear and mouthpieces and gloves, and they didn't have that stuff available to them. They were treating the movements as if they were on a battlefield using a weapon, fighting mounted cavalry or who knows what, and now we're training to do like a sport.
Mm-hmm.
And people base it on what they see, and people watch UFC. They don't understand, like from the couch to UFC, they forget about everything in between, which is a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all kinds of sport fighting out there, not to mention like a street fight. Even in a street fight, I'm not, if you smack talk me, I don't need to stab you to death. I really don't need to fight you at all.
Although, let's be honest, that's a realistic
It happens. It happens
possibility.
nowadays.
It does.
It does. So when we're talking traditional versus modern, it's just like what are you training for? As we talked about on a previous podcast, what is your reason for training?
What about you, Brian? What is traditional in your mind, in your opinion?
I can just hear the comments coming. Okay, so the truth of the matter is, for me, I look at martial arts. I'm not going to pick one that's traditional or modern. Like, I'm not going to even tell you that boxing is modern, even though it kind of is. I'm going to
What about the old school pugilist?
Yeah,
because
so
and
That's traditional, right?
that's traditional things,
Right.
But martial arts has changed so much because of like what you said. Okay, well, the purposes of doing it are so different now that they're not even the same creature.
Yeah.
If I could somehow reach in time and pull out Kuyu Chin and show him kung fu today, he would be like, the fuck is this? Because I
Or Musashi.
yeah.
Yeah.
Musashi would be like, no,
Right.
not working.
It's like
But
you take Musashi and you put a UFC fighter against him in a sword fight, he's going to kill
Oh, he's
him.
going to kill him.
You put him in a cage with gloves and let him fight a UFC
The
fighter.
UFC fighter's going to
they're
kill
probably
him.
going to win.
Yeah.
Right? It's just
Yeah.
what you're training for.
What you're
It
training
is,
for.
it is what you train for. But I like to look at it in terms of traditional practices in the martial art versus the modern ones. And in that case, I am more for the modern way of doing things, because in so many cases it's pared down. Oh, well, I'm not going to sit here and make you sift through philosophy and thought process, and I'm going to teach you how to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
And that, I think, I've had this discussion with you probably a dozen times.
Oh, we talk about it all the time.
I think the reason that Kung Fu is not more popular than it is right now, specifically talking about Kung Fu, is the way Kung Fu was taught. They keep everything like it's the greatest secret alive, even from the students that they're teaching. So rather than giving you all the information that I've ever had and letting you take it, assimilate it, and build from it, I'm like, no, you have to figure this out like I did. And you have to piece it together. And if you piece it together wrong, well, then you're screwed.
Here's a point I think that comes with that, and it's like, so if you go into like a boxing gym or MMA gym, you're learning, like, you know, if you go into a boxing gym, you're gonna learn how to box, right? You're gonna learn how to box. But like with Kung Fu, and there's a lot of other styles like this, maybe karate too, there's a lot of just like history, and you're not doing it just for the fighting. There's a whole lifestyle that kind of comes behind it.
Right.
You don't even have to fight to be good at Kung Fu.
No. Well,
I mean,
I don't consider it good Kung Fu if you don't know how to fight.
I don't either. People associate Kung Fu with fighting, you know, but like just what Kung Fu means, your Kung Fu may be something different.
So because I read a comment of a gentleman. Was it a gentleman or a lady? I don't remember. Either way.
Somebody on what, Facebook?
No, they were on YouTube, but
Okay.
I don't remember what the YouTuber
That was my second guess.
But he made a good comment about saying that if you think about traditional martial arts are usually categorized by what both of you are saying. There's usually not just fighting or sparring attached or combat. There is philosophy. There
Health.
are other aspects that they want you to learn attached to the martial art that go in with the fighting aspect. So yeah, philosophy, or you may have rituals that you do, or you may be teaching ethics and morals and all of those things.
I think in some styles it was even like a religion.
Yeah,
Right?
and yeah,
More or
yeah,
less,
yeah,
yeah.
You know, the monks were Buddhist.
yeah.
Right?
You know, and you don't have to be Buddhist to do Kung Fu. A lot of people think you do. Like,
Right.
oh, if you want to be a true, Kung Fu master, you have to be Buddhist. That's not true. But, in those respects, like when you look at, let's take our school, for example. Bow when you come in. When we see each other, we bow to each other. We show respect to each other. We try to have moral compass and things like that. And it doesn't mean modern styles don't do that either.
Right.
But this is more so something you would see in a karate school or a kung fu school. We may wear more traditional garb.
Right. Another thing is like
As
training.
I sit here in shorts and a t-shirt.
Some schools won't train kids. you know,
Right.
like,
Yeah, right.
Because they're all about just 100% fighting, and they feel like kids aren't quite ready for it. I don't know
Right.
the reasoning,
Right.
but like I told you when I had my son join here, sure I want him to learn how to fight, but that is not my main. I want him to learn discipline, focus, that kind of thing.
And that's why you start to see more children. That's why you see a lot of kids go to traditional martial arts, because they're teaching the discipline and
Right.
they're trying to teach those things. They're not just teaching the fighting aspect.
Right.
Right. But as people get older and they sometimes kind of, you should have those things. Not everybody has those things. Then they kind of say, oh, well, now I need to learn how to fight.
I'm glad you picked that. Okay.
It's true, because some people should have it and they don't have it. They really
Right.
don't.
No.
And so in this respect, when you hear traditional, those are some of the things that are usually attached to that. However, with some of those traditional practices, sometimes I think more people who are in a modern mindset see a lot more fluff. But why are you making me do this kata?
Yeah.
Why are you making me do this form? What's this exercise do?
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. Just teach me how to punch, kick, fight, throw,
Right.
break somebody's arm.
Be
I don't care
strong.
about all that.
Right.
You know. So when you think about modern, kind of transitioning to that, modern kind of gets right to the point.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you do it. You're going to do it like this. Now drill it.
Yep.
Do it over and
Drill
over and
it,
over and
drill
over
it,
and over and
drill
over and over and over.
All right, now you're going to test it out.
Now you're going to test it out. Spar with it. Figure it out. Figure it out. Now, I can probably say, now I wasn't alive back then, but you hear stories of like traditional martial arts wasn't as convoluted as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
It's become more convoluted because we live in
Well,
more
there's-
modern times.
There's so many different styles and ways to learn things.
Oh, of course.
And not to
Well,
mention just the whole things evolve over time.
Things were simpler back then. You didn't have to worry about laws back then.
Well, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about, okay, well, I just beat the shit out of somebody, and all right, well, now 3 days later, I'm going to get a lawsuit.
Right. No, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah. Things evolve, combat and warfare, all that stuff evolves too.
And also too, with the advent of social media, we can now people are now can be more comparative. So you see a kung fu practitioner get beat up by a boxing practitioner, and in your mind you go, "Oh, well, boxing worked, kung fu didn't."
Right.
You see a wrestler beat up a jujitsu practitioner. You may say, "Oh, well, wrestling works and jujitsu doesn't."
Mm-hmm.
Even though most people, if you are critically thinking, you should understand it's not necessarily the system of martial art that is ineffective. It's usually how it's trained
Yeah.
or who is training it
Yeah.
that can make it ineffective.
The teacher and the student.
Right.
That's kind of a big if, though.
Yeah.
It can be. And so the thing with a lot of traditional martial arts that have made them ineffective in combat is you had a lot of people who have been falsely promoted, who have not pressure tested what they're doing enough.
Yeah.
So when it's time to use it, they don't know how to use it. And then they'll teach somebody and they don't really know how to showcase, hey, I can really teach you when to use this front kick and how to use this front kick, how to generate power in this front kick, how to use this in sparring. They can just kind of say, oh, well, Sensei told me to do it like this, so you're going to do it like Sensei told me to do it.
You're forgetting one minor detail, too.
What?
Some people just aren't built to fight.
And that's true too. And I've met a lot of black belts. Now, I will tell you, I met a lot of black belts. And this is no disrespect for those people that I go, that guy's not a fighter, man.
Can't fight.
That guy's not a fighter. And that's no disrespect. You earned
Right.
it.
Sometimes it's a lot of different variables too. Sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's technique, and sometimes it's purely mental.
Yes, mentality.
Sometimes it's purely mental.
Some
Somebody
people-
will have a great technique, they've done it for years, but then they get punched in the face.
And then it goes out the window.
I'm going to say it, and it's a plug for this podcast, but some people don't have a martial mentality.
Yeah.
They just don't have it.
Right. I'm kind of working. I'm struggling with mine lately. Got my nose busted the other week, and now I'm turning my head away when I'm getting punched. So I'm working on it.
And
you know?
and that's human because guess what? You got injured. You're fighting that instinct to go. That hurt. Don't
Right, I
have
don't
it
wanna
happen.
do
don't
that
let it
again.
happen
Don't
again.
happen again.
Right. Right.
You know.
So-
But no, that's the difference that you're seeing with traditional and modern. And the issue with a lot of traditional schools that I've seen, and that's why I changed the way. That's why I completely changed the way I started teaching.
There's another aspect we haven't talked about, but finish what you're saying.
I started to realize that if you can take something that's traditional and teach it from a modern perspective,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it makes it more what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say, I guess tangible,
Digestible?
beneficial.
digestible,
Digestible.
easier to digest for a more modern
I
generation.
feel like a lot of
people.
people hear kung fu or something, they think some ancient secret art.
Lee Sun Grasshopper.
Right. But like sure there's a lot of techniques, and the way we move and do our forms and stuff may not seem regular to, the outside looking in, but you come in here, that's not all we do. You're going to do boxing drills, you're going to do like all these different drills, like like I said, you do a good job of, we're not just doing forms all the time and not understanding why we're doing them. We're mixing, we're doing the forms, you're explaining them why, and then you can put it in a boxing setting why you're doing this, or a grappling scenario.
Well, okay, Brian, what do we do tonight? What did we spend all class doing?
We spent all class on front kicks.
We were just front kicking.
2 weeks ago, we spent all classes in a sparring match where nobody could kick.
You know?
Yeah,
So-
we were boxing. We were just
We
using
were
hands
essentially
last week.
boxing.
Yeah. You know? So that's still part of the martial art. But when people hear the buzzwords of kung fu, karate, all they think is form, wearing pajamas, as people
Point,
call them.
Yeah, point
Well,
sparring.
I
Point
mean-
sparring.
Turn around and look at your wall.
yeah.
What do you see?
I mean, I get it. But, you know, I guess the thing is, like, most people have seen enough bad
Kung fu.
traditional martial art that's what they think automatically.
Yeah.
And they see good boxing, they see good Muay Thai, they see good MMA, they see good Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, that was. I think it was just people knew how to promote it.
We
at
also
that
don't
point.
have videos of like the samurai fighting their wars or Spartans fighting their wars. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like people, what do they watch now? UFC. That's all they judge anything off of. UFC.
Yep.
That's all they
because
judge
it was
anything.
really well documented and promoted.
Right, it was, and you know,
Look at all
they're
the-
the top fighters in the world, like hand-to-hand combat fighters, like
You don't get to see all of the bad UFC fighters.
right, and like I said, all the steps in between. You got a bunch of MMA leagues out there. You got like grappling tournaments, jiu-jitsu tournaments. We got kung fu tournaments. You got karate point sparring, and all the divisions in that. You know, all the levels in that. So there's so much in between, but UFC is what people watch and base it on.
Well, Brian, you made a really good point about how modern martial arts did a great job of, and when we say modern martial arts, obviously boxing, jiu-jitsu, and even though those things aren't Muay Thai, they're not modern, but that's what people are considering as modern.
right?
You know, those styles. But you're right; they promoted them so well, and they have shown to work so well.
Yeah, it's a media thing.
I firmly believe this is why there's a karate school in every town.
yeah.
Or now there's BJJ schools everywhere too.
Oh yeah, they're everywhere.
So
It was the
it's
media
one or
too.
the
It
other.
was all the movies and stuff too. Like,
yeah, you're right.
You know, that popularized it.
You're right.
So I mean,
But
yeah.
and I want to go back to this for a second too, because there's another thing we don't talk about, and that's we don't spend the time on martial arts like traditional martial artists did. Let's be realistic. We have class 3 days a week
Yeah,
yeah,
for a couple hours.
right.
You and I both know that monks from Shaolin, samurai from
8 to 10 hours
Japan, yeah, at least.
a day.
That was their job.
That
Yeah,
was
that's
their job.
That's their job.
And even if you
I
take
love that.
even if you take the Western versions of things,
Yeah.
Spartan soldiers,
That's what
Roman
they did.
soldiers,
Yeah. From kids.
That
And
was-
Muay Thai fighters. I mean, they train, you know, the Thailand, like, they train from kids to adults.
Yeah.
And there was a UFC fighter talking about this the other day. It's like, why you don't see a lot of those guys fighting in UFC is because it's straight up history and tradition that, like,
You
grow up a fighter, you're fighting Thai fights.
Yeah.
You know? So I think that's kind of cool.
They've
I think it's
got. I mean,
great.
they've got specific gear that they
Right.
wear that's
Right.
borderline sacred to them.
Right. Right.
No, I would have to say probably out of all the more modern arts that I mean, I respect all of them. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
But like, if one that I would say, you know what, if I were to do a modern art that I would be attracted to, I really like the culture of Muay Thai.
Yeah.
I do like their culture. I think they
Right.
have a great martial culture to them that I'll be
Yeah.
like,
Right. They're fighters.
yeah, they
Yeah.
are. They
Right.
are. They
Right.
are. They're tough as nails.
Big on conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But
My poor shin hurts already.
But
thinking
here's the
about it.
thing, though. Here's the thing. Before, you know, and when we have Nathaniel on this podcast eventually, and he's going to talk a lot more about this. So I don't want to go into deep about this. But before, you know, the Cultural Revolution in China,
Yeah.
that basically ruined Kung Fu in some respects, no offense.
Yeah.
Kung Fu was really seen as a very rugged, thug-like thing for people to do.
Because it was all gangs.
Right. It was,
Yeah.
you know, you were usually a thug, like, you know, like
Right.
you weren't like,
People that was out fighting.
yeah,
Well-
they were fighting. They were
Right.
tough.
Right.
There were a couple that were more upstanding because the masters were seen pretty high in society in some places.
Yeah, but a lot of times, a lot of people who did martial arts, like you said, were being hired to be in gangs or to be enforcers or to do things that were probably not well thought of by the community.
Yeah.
Do you mean like bodyguards that were necessary?
I mean, it's necessary, but
Yeah. Look at.
But I mean, look what you specialize in. If I specialize in take sword, hurt other person,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get hired for the nice, happy job.
A lot of people's reasoning now, what do people think about when they don't even hear the specific discipline. They just hear the word martial arts. Like, a lot of times they may think sport, but I think most people's head go to not just fighting. It goes to fighting, but it's also like how many parents do you see that putting their kids into martial arts and when they've never done martial arts or don't even know what it's about, but they put their kids in it anyway because they're thinking about like all the it's a good thing. It's discipline, it's focus, it's that. Versus back then, they would be like, no, I'm not putting my kid in that.
right.
So it's looked at differently.
Well, you did put your kid in it, but you taught your kid yourself
yeah,
because you had the family art of XYZ.
Yeah, it may be a family art or
Or it was your clan relation of.
oh yeah.
All right,
but
well,
then
Uncle
it's
Johnny over there knows what he's doing. We're gonna go
Right.
teach you how to not
Yeah.
die.
You have to go to this one though. You
Yeah.
don't go over there. To
No,
that.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Right.
You're gonna learn from Uncle Johnny.
Right.
Well, here's the thing that happened in I'd probably say the late 19th century, late 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. You started to see a shift in martial arts, especially in America, and I guess more worldwide as the world became a little bit more westernized. You started to see less about, I'm just going to teach you how to just beat somebody up. Like you're just
Right.
going to go and just beat the crap out of these people. I don't care about your moral compass.
We're
in
gonna
some
teach you to
respects.
be a weapon.
We're going to teach you to be a human weapon, and we
Right.
don't care if you're a psycho.
yeah.
Well, guess what? Nowadays, that people are quote unquote more civilized.
Yeah.
If people were to come into school and they just see we are just beating the ever loving piss out of each other and everybody's bloody and we're yelling at kids and beating kids, we're probably not going to get a lot of students.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
you
you're
say,
not.
you say
you're
that,
not.
and the ones that have stayed are usually the ones that ended up sparring really quickly into the curriculum. Have you noticed that?
Well, I'm going to tell you why I do that in a little bit. I have a reason.
I know why, but I'm still saying there might be some actual truth to this matter.
Weeding them out.
Well, yeah, that's part of it.
Kinda.
But
Well, not really weeding them out, but like seeing if they really want to be here.
that's part of it. But also, you have to kind of give them a taste of.
People don't like pain
Yeah.
of any kind.
That's part
Right.
of it. But then I also think you kind of got to show people that you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Right.
Because a lot of people come through here and they go,
It's a tough balance, I'm sure.
"Oh, it is," because like you don't want to be like, "Oh, we're gonna just throw
Well,
you in there to beat you up."
And even
In
when
the
you
age of social media now, as we sit here on a show, everybody on the planet can come and judge you.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course.
and the other side of it too is that you throw them in there, but you don't want to throw them in there to somebody that's gonna try to knock them out
Right. Or hurt them.
or really hurt them. You know what I mean? Like that's probably a hard balance, and
It is.
like because if you go too light, then that's what they get used to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's got to be tough.
Well, that's kind of what's happening in a lot of traditional schools. The sparring wasn't hard enough in some respects.
Right.
More so in modern times. Now, in the 80s and the
I think we
70s, the
should-
early 90s, they were banging.
Oh God.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I
They were
can
kicking
imagine
the
so.
shit out of each other.
Oh, yeah,
Bare,
yeah.
bare knuckle.
Oh
Man.
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't
Yeah.
don't think those karate tournaments in the olden days, the 60s, 70s, and
I mean,
80s.
they still have full
Like,
contact
have
karate.
you
and
seen-
it's
have you-
brutal looking.
Have you seen just Chuck Norris in the 70s and 80s? Have
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah.
seen him actually in his when he won his tournaments?
Right.
Yeah, they were knocking each other out, bro.
Right. Right.
Some of the, you know why?
Yeah, it's tough.
This is random. You know why a lot of times they had a low guard sometimes?
So you didn't get kicked in the nuts?
Yeah, you can get kicked in the nuts. Right. Like,
Yeah.
so don't think that they weren't hitting
or
each
the
other.
knee.
Right.
Yeah, the
They
knee.
could do that stuff.
Right.
But like once again, you're not seeing all the videos and the social media now.
Right.
You're seeing the boxing, the jiu-jitsu, the MMA, and all that stuff. You
Yeah.
know?
Yep. Yeah, the media controls it.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like. Well,
But what I think with a lot of traditional arts, and so to go back to say, you say, okay, you throw people in the ring a little bit early. What I have learned, especially about like Ricky, shout out to Ricky.
hey,
Ricky's a great example of this. So Ricky's my Ishinru student, but Ricky is a great martial
that
artist.
Ricky. I was like, which Ricky are we talking
So,
about?
so like it was so interesting because Ricky has been doing Ishinru for about a year now, and when he came to the Kung Fu school, I think one thing that drew him here, and he's like, "Oh, I like training here," is the intensity.
yeah.
That we're more intense,
Right.
and that we train harder, and that we're a little rougher with each other.
Yeah.
Not to the point where we hurt each other, but at the point where we push each other.
Yep.
And then when we spar, you're getting a lot more pressure and you're getting a lot more feedback.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that explains today then. Okay.
At Winthrop, we cannot be like that.
I'd imagine not. I'd imagine you probably got to go fairly light.
Yeah, we do.
Being a college.
We do.
I mean, at college, you know what I mean? To
Right.
be expected.
We have to be like.
right.
I had a different experience in fencing when I did it. We literally crafted that club to be intense.
Mm.
But we brought the core of the club
Yeah.
and we were like, do we want to do this? Because I remember sitting down with the coach. You remember Edgecombe?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So Edgecombe was sitting there and he's like, do y'all want to do this? Because if we make this serious, you're going to lose the people that are just kind of here. And that was the argument that we had. It was like, okay, well, if we're going to do this, everybody's going to have to commit and train hard. And okay, are you willing to accept the loss of the people that maybe don't care or that are just there to have fun or whatever? Because that was my argument, and I took the devil's advocate for this because I wanted to do it, but in the same vein, I was like, look, we can't risk killing the club.
Mm.
Luckily, we had enough people that it didn't matter, so the club continued. But yeah, you could carve it that way. It's just risky.
Well, it's interesting you say that because this kind of goes into that traditional aspect and why a lot more of the traditional schools have become ineffective is that they started to cater to a group of people that necessarily didn't need that gruff fighting mentality.
Like, this is not to go against anybody because I feel like anybody that is interested in martial arts should do martial arts for the, whatever reasons. But like, take a school that like they do like senior classes, right?
Right.
Like, are y'all going to be out there fighting in the ring or going out and looking for trouble in the street? Like, probably. I hope not.
I hope not.
I mean,
But they're in there moving, like learning forms, like doing whatever, trying to better themselves, trying to get work on their health. That's a great thing, So just to add to your point there is, they don't need that full contact sparring. You know what I mean? Like now,
and
don't get
in
me wrong,
this
I've
corner, Ethel.
yeah, you see some videos out there again going back to the media. You see some older folks that still like to scrap, but a lot of them aren't in it to do that.
So let me tell you why. So I've done a full contact fight. I've done a tough enough competition. I've done some really hard sparring, and I like sparring. But one thing I realized very quickly is that my shelf life was going to be very short if I kept going this
That
hard,
hard, yeah.
for a long period of time. My brain could not take that type of pounding. And I think what we're going to start seeing with all these new combat sports 20, 30 years from now, I mean, you're probably already seeing it with some fighters now, is you're
Yeah.
going to start seeing some people degenerate because of CTE and other aspects because your body can't take
Yeah,
that
look
much
at the
damage.
boxers.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Right.
You can't take it.
That's a lot.
It
That's a
is.
lot.
And so one thing that traditional martial arts emphasizes sometimes more than modern martial arts is longevity.
Yeah, and that's what it's about too. It's supposed to be a longevity. That was another one of those comments in that thing you were talking about earlier. It's like sometimes it's not just about getting you to the point like your best ability of fighting so you can go get in a ring. Sometimes it's about just long term your life being in the best mental, physical state, mind, body, spirit kind of thing. So it's like, as Matt likes to say, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
It's true.
And yeah, if you're out there banging it out every day, you may be a great fighter because
You
you're
ain't gonna
used to
last long.
it. But one day it's it's not gonna last forever.
Well, look what happened in a lot of UFC and the Thai fighters do it well because I love the way they have their.
They're tough.
They're tough, but here's what when they spar, they're not sparring all the time. What do? They play.
Yeah.
They play because they understand for me to be able to take a beating like that, I cannot be beat up all the time. There's no physically
They condition
way.
themselves a lot. They use a lot of pad work. From what we see, this is purely based on what I see. So I'm no expert, but based on what I see, they use a lot of pad work. They condition a lot. They throw hard strikes. When they spar, they're not 110% killing each other when they spar every time. That's just.
I also would like to know the conditioning levels that nowadays versus for modern versus traditional as we've been
Right.
doing this, because I still think they're different.
Oh, they are.
They gotta be.
They are because I can definitely tell you this.
And this is purely just my own mentality. I have no research on this right now.
We didn't
so
even exist back then, so it's like we're
somebody
we're
who
talking
might
based on what we
know, please send me some information. I'm curious.
I can guarantee that. Okay, you think about somebody in the early let's say the 1800s. You probably were gonna live till about then. Medicine was a little bit better, but I give you 50s, 60s, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Where, I'm actually going to ask this question because it matters. What country are we in?
Okay, let's say America.
When?
Okay, then yeah, 56.
I give you 50s or 60s.
When?
and
What were we
the
talking?
1800s. You live in about
Yeah.
50s, 60s. And so, you got to think about what you're eating, because the diet, your
Yeah, the
diet may not,
lifestyle.
your lifestyle, because your diet, because think about it back then, you could eat worse, but some of those things didn't bother you because you burned it off because you had a more physical lifestyle.
Yeah, much more physical lifestyle. Had to be.
Oh, it was.
You
Had to
had a
be.
lot cleaner foods back then too.
Well, that's true too. But think about it. You wake up in the morning and you slaughter, you eating slaughtered pig, and you got pork chop, bacon, all that.
I guess it depends on where you're at too, but
Right.
and my head always goes to
Beef, chicken.
the people that
yeah,
were
that's all the
like,
good shit. What are you talking about?
on the trail.
That's the stuff that you need to eat.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm interrupting.
Different lifestyles depending on where you live too. That still exists.
Oh, yeah,
But
no.
more so back then, were you, in the town, or were you traveling, or were you
Were
on
you a
horseback all
farmer?
the Were you a farmer?
Right.
That always makes a
Were
big
you a
difference.
cowboy?
Right.
So that all depends on.
How much did your life suck is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, and then that determines, because that can affect your, your physical fitness, things of
Mental
that nature,
state,
your
too.
your mental state. So if you think about a lot of those martial artists, what do we hear stories about? A lot of them were, and it depends on the region you were in. So let's say, let's take Okinawa. A lot of people think, oh, all the martial artists were farmers. That's not actually true.
Right.
A lot of the people that did martial arts were actually affluent people because they had the time to dedicate to
Yeah,
training
to
martial
do it.
arts,
That's right.
not trying to survive.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You either fought for a living or you were rich enough that you could fight whenever the hell you
Whenever
wanted.
you wanted to.
That makes perfect sense.
So you got to
Yep.
think about it. So
Nowadays, a lot of people, and I'm a no excuses type of person, but it's not really just an excuse thing. It's true. When you work all the time, I get it. When you work, there's people that that I know that they work 7 days a week, and I mean more than 8 hours, 8 to 10. And I'm
I
like,
still know people that brag about working 80, 100 hours a week, and I'm going, okay.
good for you. I get it. But to be that type of person, it's you don't have no more time.
You're done.
You're done.
So-
that's all. Yes, your whole life.
if we think about
know?
that time period, you had the people who were really good at martial arts, it was either their job
Or they were rich.
or they were affluent maybe, or they had the ability and time. And that's not to say that there weren't people who had a tough lifestyle and still got good at martial arts.
That's right.
Now, I know there were people like that.
Oh, yeah.
However,
Those ninja villages.
we all know the time that it takes to be good at this.
Yeah.
And that's why now, especially in the sports world, we see professional UFC fighters that their job is nothing more than to
yeah.
just practice
Yep.
being a fighter because
That's
they
right.
know the time and energy
is their
that it
job.
takes. That is their job.
Yeah.
And so for traditional martial arts, we've lost some of that. This is our job because this has become more of a pastime.
because it's not our job.
It's true. It's not our job.
I have that time to dedicate to it. You know.
And if you want to be a little bit more honest about traditional versus modern, more of the modern martial arts are now being built for the ring.
Mm-hmm.
You can still use those ring skills in the street,
Right.
but a lot of the more traditional that we normally think about, they weren't necessarily built for ring combat. They were built for street combat.
Yeah. The times and everything determine that. Like you said, the laws, like I'm sure a street fight, like your typical street fight now looks way different than like a typical street fight did way back in the day.
I'm sure it did.
Well,
in ancient China.
Or maybe it didn't.
Since
Maybe
you,
it did.
since you
Who
bring
knows?
out China, typical street fights back in China were you were on a raised platform and somebody died.
Oh, they called each other out, didn't they? To like fight or
Yes,
something?
you
Yeah.
had legitimate duels.
To the death.
To the death, remember?
You could do death duels. It was,
Ain't nobody doing that nowadays.
no.
Nobody's doing
No.
that. Like I challenge you to a fight to the death.
Right.
No,
No.
Most
I'm good.
people-
I'm out.
Most
Yeah.
people on the internet, if you were to be like, okay, you think your martial arts work? Okay. We're going to choose the weapons, we're going to choose the place, and we're going to do it to the death. Do you accept? Most people be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm
No.
stupid. No.
Most people wouldn't hop in the ring. Period.
No.
You know.
No.
I want to say something, but I'll leave that out.
But here's the thing. You know, there's
somebody I want to say something to.
Don't say it. Don't say it. But that was a culture in a lot of the traditional martial arts that have been tamed down. There is a true culture of challenge
Yeah.
that when you got to about the 1960s and 70s that kind of started to kind of dissipate because there was nothing for some of these old guys to tell you. If you were teaching something that they didn't agree with,
Prove it, bitch.
Prove it.
we knocking on that door.
Right. Show me it.
Show
works.
me it works. Because
Right.
I don't think what you're doing
Step
works.
over here,
Right.
please.
Step up. You know, I mean, you do that nowadays, you're getting arrested.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on where you go. Now, it may be like, oh, okay, well, you know, come in my mindset. But like, if you truly were like to challenge somebody, like you said, to like a true duel to the death.
Yeah.
Never mind to the death. Just a duel.
A fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the duel in general. Most people are not going to usually do that.
Yeah.
You know, but traditional martial arts had that culture, and that's kind of been taken away. So there's a lot more darkness.
People would be a lot more careful about what they said, though.
What? But you know what? That's why so many people on the internet say all this crazy stuff because they know you can't check them.
Yeah.
If they knew you could check them,
Right.
a lot of people would not run their mouth.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so funny because they'll be behind their keyboard and they'll tell you everything that doesn't work. This sucks. Why
I
are you
hear
doing
the
this?
typing from the
Right. What are you talking about? That's so dumb. And half the people do not have the experience or the know-it-all or the wherewithal in order to even comment about some of the things
What's
that they're talking
the next
about.
question after that too? It's like that won't work. Well, it won't work in what?
Right. What's the context?
What's the context? You know that really.
Prove me wrong is the next
the
question. I
context is
say.
everything.
Yeah.
Like being martial artists or kung fu practitioners, we're also not idiots. I'm not going to run into like some bad neighborhood, you know, and call everybody out and get jumped by like 10 people thinking I can handle myself. You know what I mean? We're not stupid, you know, like we're working on front kicks today, right?
Yeah.
Like in the right scenario, that is my favorite move. That's like a go-to move. Somebody's walking up to me or whatever, but like, you know, in some scenarios it won't work. You know, it's not, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but it's not a good thing to think that everything you're going to do is you can't get false
Nothing
confidence
is
from the stuff.
foolproof.
Nothing's foolproof.
There is no one ultimate
Yeah,
technique
we're
that will defeat all others.
That's right. We're training to increase our odds.
There is no style that is better than any other style.
Right.
Oh God, here we go.
It's true, because that's
You can
basically
hear the
this-
typing.
That's basically the traditional versus modern.
There is one person that's always making that argument about like, you know, he hears that whole like it's the martial artist, not the martial art, but he like wholeheartedly disagrees with it.
Who?
Oh, it's just some person I see online.
Oh,
You know what
okay.
I mean, like always online
Find
talking
them.
about. Yeah, he's always online talking about like I don't agree with that. Like you can't compare. Like you can compare these martial arts, and I think there's maybe a shred of truth, but
Yeah,
it
you
comes
can-
down to the teacher and the student.
You can compare martial arts. You have to accept that this is a striking style,
Yeah,
and you can compare it against striking styles,
right.
and you can compare it in scenarios where striking styles will work.
Yeah.
If you, let me say that properly. If you put it in a situation where, and I say this pointing at the wall,
Mm-hmm.
if you put a Northern Shaolin Kung Fu in a disadvantaged situation and compare it to a martial art where that is their specialty, for lack of a better word, that is
Yeah.
where they are advantageous, of course it's gonna fucking look different.
Right. Right.
Of course one is gonna be better than the other because that was the scenarios in which they focused on.
That's where they train. Yeah.
Every martial art, in my opinion, has a focus to it. The sad truth of the matter is everybody has to realize there's only so many moves the human body can make.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's only so many ways you can attack somebody.
Correct.
I come from a fencing background. There's a treatise, and I forget the name, and I wish I had someone with more knowledge. Where's Ryan when I need him? On this, and then he essentially says, I don't care if I have one sword or two swords or 10 swords, I can still only attack you from about 8 different angles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the defenses are still the same, guys.
Yeah.
The issue is when people, once again, we talked about this before on a previous podcast. What are you training for?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to think about what's the context of what you're training for. Okay. I will definitely tell you this. A lot of times I have learned through years of teaching that to train somebody for sport combat is different than training somebody for street combat.
Mm-hmm.
They're two different things. It truly is. A lot of people are going to say, no, they're one and the same. And that's not true.
No, I don't agree with that at all.
It is not true. You truly have to train them for what
After-
they're doing.
Being in a couple of street fights in my life, I ain't been in a ton. I'm not going to sit there and say I'm an expert, but I've been in a few, you know. And now that I've competed in sport, it's night and day. It's apples and oranges. It's not even close to being the same.
I can take
Way
this,
different.
I can
Yeah.
take this a step further. I've been in a situation where they trained me to worry about whether or not you're going to be sued at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And you train very differently on how to fight and how to handle somebody than you do in a street fight than you do in the ring.
Yeah.
And you with the police background and even myself in the military background, what we were trained wasn't hand-to-hand combat. It's how to like control somebody.
Right.
Exactly.
Get them on the ground, make them not a threat anymore.
Right.
Get the weapons away.
Right.
Yeah, because
use backup.
Your
Right.
entire focus was hold them here until somebody else can come and handle the situation.
Right. Like take them away. Like make them not a threat anymore, whatever that means.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Most people are delusional that they think that ring combat and street combat are the same. Are there overlaps? Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Are there things that you can take from both to use in those arenas?
Absolutely.
Yes. But truly, to be elite or good at one or the other, your training methodologies and your training pedagogy
Has to be different.
has to change. It has to
It's
change.
not the end all be all when you're like even like all the MMA divisions and everything, like they have different rules and everything. Like I was watching a fight the other day and there was a guy on his back and a guy in side control. No, I think it was Conor and Khabib. I think Conor threw a knee. Like Khabib, I might be wrong, so whatever. But if I'm not mistaken, Khabib was in side control and Conor threw a knee intentionally from his back, threw a knee and hit him in the head, which is completely illegal. But he did that. Not to mention, there's eye gouges, the whole 6 o'clock elbows. Like
Well,
you
that's-
take all those out of the equation, all that stuff.
Let's back up for a second because even if you're looking at UFC rules, they've changed in the brief.
They change
time,
all the time,
in the
too,
brief
yeah.
time that it's been a thing, really.
Right.
well, you know why they changed?
Because they were so dangerous.
Remember that
Yes.
first fight? I forget the names, but the guys got him in the. I don't even know the name of the position, but he's
He's got him spread eagle like that.
I think
and
it's
hit him in
called the
face.
crucifix position. That's what it's called.
Yeah, he's
And
got
then
him like this, and he's
freaking-
elbowing him in the face.
like,
That was so brutal.
brutal. Like,
And
they're
they're just-
okay, no more of that.
And
Right.
and that was one thing if he hit him like twice,
Right.
and the ref stopped it. But
Going
no,
to
that
town,
guy
man.
was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm like, okay, he's
Right.
done.
Right.
Fight over.
And if you think about it, back then, like they didn't really have the weight classes, so you saw like a big guy versus a smaller guy,
Right.
And stuff.
Which
like
was
that.
the other thing. I think that guy. I think if it's the same fight I'm thinking about, he was bigger.
Oh yeah, he was.
Like he was
Yeah.
visibly bigger.
Now, and here's the thing you got to understand about. We've talked about this before, So okay, we're talking about most modern martial arts teach you to deal with one threat.
Yeah.
You're dealing with one threat, and you're in a certain environment that usually has a referee.
I feel like there's a bit of a. I feel like this is unavoidable, but I feel like any martial art you go to is preparing you to fight against that martial art.
And that's true too.
There's the self-defense aspect where we go over drills and drills and
That's true,
drills.
too.
A lot of
But-
schools do that, but like typically you're fighting against someone of
Again,
that same discipline.
take that the logical step further. What is the comment that every self-defense person says?
Well, that
Oh,
would
they
work.
probably don't know another martial art.
Yeah.
How many times do we say, all right, he's a street fighter, he doesn't know what he's doing?
Mm-hmm.
When do you often sit down and go, okay, you're fighting another martial artist who knows everything that you know or another style that you don't know?
Yeah.
Nobody trains that situation.
Here's the
Despite the dearth of kickboxing, BJJ schools.
Try to fight what's likely going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you try to go through the outcomes.
What are you
play it like a game of
what
chess.
are you training for again? If you're training for quote unquote street, then you need to learn weapons. You need to learn some ground defense. You need to learn so many different things.
You need to learn weapons, modern weapons.
What still? That's what I mean.
You work
That's
on
what I
all
mean.
of it.
I'm just clarifying. 'cause
Modern weapons,
People
yeah.
out here, I don't want
Right.
them to get the wrong idea.
You need to learn weapons.
This is not a modern weapon, kids.
No.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But I will.
It's fun. It's fun. I like it.
Right.
I'm not going to carry one around.
And this kind of wraps back around traditional. A lot of traditional schools are going to make you learn traditional weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm learning traditional weapons. I'm not going to use that.
I'm not going to carry a staff around
Right.
But
unless I'm hiking a trail.
Yeah.
there's an aspect to learning a weapon in general that
Yeah.
makes you more skilled as a martial artist. And I think another thing
Yeah,
that
be aware of pointy stick.
well, I think that's another thing about traditional
Stick 'em
martial
with the
arts.
pointy end.
They're usually going to make you do something that you don't quite understand right now. Why are you making me do this? A lot of
Right.
people don't understand why you make me do this because that mindset is different.
I wanted to let you finish.
No, okay. What I was gonna say was it's almost like the Karate Kid type thing. Miyagi makes him paint the fence. Why are you making me paint this fence? This is so dumb. Well, let me show you why. But you're gonna do it 1st. You need to listen to me before I show you the reason.
This is where I think traditional martial arts falls flat. They make you do that stuff and they don't they almost make you find the reason. The original Karate Kid. He came in and he did paint the fence. Wax on, wax off.
Cut the bonsai tree.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
What was the other one? There were 4. Wax on, wax off, paint the fence.
Paint the fence.
Sand the deck.
Oh, yeah, sand the
he
deck.
sanded
Sand the deck. Yes.
What did he end up doing? He had no idea what was going on. He lost all his patience.
This sucks, Mr. Miyagi.
This is where I think they failed.
I'm out of
because
here.
There's
Okay, Ralph Macchio.
they're they're expecting, and I guess it's just Asian culture, maybe. I hate saying it like that, but they're expecting you to do all of to find what they found or find what
Yeah.
what the first guy found, and he taught it to the second guy. I get that. I do. But here's the problem. I can't expand on it if I spend my life finding it out like you did.
I mean, that's true.
I can't perfect the technique. I can't build on it if 75% of my time is spent doing the same things that you did to understand them the same way.
That's a good point.
Well, I'll say
maybe
that.
maybe let's decode the philosophy a little bit and hand it to somebody and see what they can do with it and build on it.
So let's say it like this. So this is what I figured out. Now, this is just me, but I think it works. I think
A moment in the mind of Sifu Del Mar.
I think reverse engineering it is what's needed now. We're going to show you what works right now.
Yeah.
We're going to show you sparring right now. We're going to show you how to punch, kick. We're going to show you those basics right now. We're going to give you something that you can use right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then, once you have those things, let me show you this twist on it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, why'd you do that? Well, you know what? If you study this form, or this form that you've been practicing, this is that technique. Really? This is how that works here. Oh, let me show you this. Wait a second. I didn't know you could do it like that. Well, if you practice this kata, this is where the technique is in the kata. So like, I almost feel like you have to show them how it works, why it works. You show them simpler aspects, but then you show them that the rabbit hole goes deeper. And the way to get there is by studying this, because you have a basis now. Now, how does this work? And I think more people are apt to say, oh, I will learn this form, this kata, because now I see where the technique is. I'm not trying to reverse engineer it where I just learned this choreography, but I don't know why I'm doing this choreography.
Yeah. Like when
You
we
mean
talked
I'm not
about,
a detective deciphering the
Yeah.
ancient scripts?
Right. Like
Yep.
you're not doing the Karate Kid thing where, no, we're going to teach you how to, you know what? This is my
This is
second
why you
day.
do this.
But
yeah.
again,
Why are you making me spar on the second day? Because you need to learn combat. Get in
Thought
there.
you want to learn to fight.
Right. Get in there.
Right.
you know why this works? We talked about time. I don't have 75 years to put into this.
You might not.
Right.
You might not. And you
It's
may
not
need
my
skills
job.
right now. And if you give people skills right now that they can use right now, they can go out of there and you say, I taught Johnny how to do a good front kick. Johnny can at least throw a decent front kick on somebody to stop them from trying to attack them.
God forbid Johnny's at school tomorrow and the bully comes by and
Right. And
then
we
you hear
like,
about Johnny doing a front kick and you're like, hey.
even when we did our front kicks earlier today, it wasn't just here's the one way to throw a front kick. It's like here's 3 different ways you can kind of do it. Small differences, but they make a big difference.
Right.
And then
Small,
what did the most advanced of us do? Hey, follow up.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Or we started making the drill more fluid. Hey, now this person, you kick them away, but
Yeah.
maybe what if they don't go straight back? They go this way, they go that way.
Right. Or
Now
they're coming at
timing's
you.
involved. They're actually coming at you.
Right, right. And that's another thing that sometimes traditional martial arts didn't do that modern martial arts do well that we need to get back to. Pressure test. We don't pressure test enough. So then you don't get enough repetitions to know this works, and then you don't get enough repetitions to know when to do it, why to do it, and how to do it.
Yeah.
There's the simple fact of the matter. Kicking a bag is not the same as kicking a person.
That's true too.
Kicking a person with that little padded thing is not the same as kicking a person.
Right.
They're gonna react differently.
Exactly.
In
Kicking
all
the
three
air.
situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If I kick the air with the wall behind me, it's not the same as if I kick, out in the middle of the mat.
right.
If I
Yeah.
kick on that carpet, it's not the same as kicking on this mat.
Right.
Yeah.
All of those things will affect how I do it at a later stage.
Yeah. If you're on the hardwood and socks,
Right.
That'll
you.
change things,
That'll
too.
change things quite a bit.
And a lot of
if you're
people-
uphill, downhill.
Another
yeah.
big thing that's a difference between traditional and modern, and how could I forget this, is usually traditionals have some kind of kata form, some kind of traditional, I don't want to say dance like, but a drill like
They have a pattern.
attached to them usually that make them traditional.
Yeah.
And more modern, quote unquote, don't do that. However, when you're being technical and using semantics, there is no way you can learn a martial art without learning a kata or form, no matter how small it is. What do they teach you in your jiu-jitsu class? You're learning a pattern of movement.
Oh yeah. Even we do like the warm up drills, and it's always same movement.
It's a pattern of
patterns,
movement
and you're applying those same movements to your
sparring. So guess what? Traditional should be the same way.
Yeah.
But what happened to a lot of people is they started to go,
And what do boxers do? They shadow box.
learn the pattern, but now you know how to fight.
Yeah.
No.
Go forth. You have learned all that I can teach.
Shadow boxing isn't even just learning, throwing my 1-2. It's like slipping. It's defending.
Right.
So
right. Right.
It's a form.
Right.
It's a kata.
You should. It is. But most people will say, no. That's shadow boxing. That's not a kata. That's not a form.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Tell me how it's different, Bob.
Right.
I want to know. Tell me how it's
Right.
different right now. Show me.
The problem with too many people is that they learn these kata, these forms, these more traditional aspects, and they have no way of unlocking the true fighting aspect of why they did what they did.
Yeah.
You can line up 10 karate practitioners in here, and if you ask them why they did what they did, I guarantee 80% of them don't know why. Or they give you some crazy, application where you go, well, that's not realistic, or that's not going to work, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's what it is, and it's because, what did you say? Who said that earlier about how it's the way it's taught? Somebody, one of you guys said that.
Yeah.
But at many times, at both times.
Right, because the
Yeah.
teachers, a lot of the teachers, unfortunately, don't have the fight background. You haven't competed enough, or maybe you've never been in a real life situation where you've had to use this. So there's nothing for you to glean from.
I mean, let's be realistic. There are plenty of martial arts instructors of all kinds of martial arts that, because it's a very realistic possibility now, that have never been in combat of any kind.
It's
Like
true.
the karate low block. That one still confuses me.
In traditional martial arts, there was that would have been impossible back.
Oh, those guys were fighting.
I mean, I'm gonna say
A lot of those guys were fighting.
even back in the 1800s, that was basically
A
impossible.
lot of those
Yeah.
guys were fighting. And let me unlock the karate low block for you. If you want to be truly technical about karate, now this is just me. If you want to go in the comments and debate me, please do, because that helps the algorithm.
Yeah, a lot of applications. I'm sure.
I'm
but-
waiting.
The karate
I will
low
answer.
block is not really a low block. It is taught as a low block because we have learned legs are bigger than arms.
Mm-hmm.
Legs are usually tougher than arms. Why am I going to bring my arm to your leg?
Right.
I wouldn't do that.
Right.
So if you analyze the movement of why am I coming across the body, why am I coming like this, most likely I'm either throwing, grabbing, accosting in some way, shape, or form, because this motion lends itself to that strength.
There's the wrestling, like sometimes you do two on one arm and you pull it across. It's the same kind of,
It's the same movement. But because most people don't pressure test enough,
yeah.
and they don't have enough fighting
I
experience.
think people's head goes straight to block a kick, but it's like
That's
it's a
not
bad
what you
idea.
wanna
That's
do.
not how you
Terrible
block a
idea.
kick.
Right.
That's not how you block a kick.
Do not,
Right.
do not,
Low block.
do not
Right.
block
No,
a kick
Right.
with a single arm.
So that's just one example out of thousands, of you can't judge the book, but you can't just say, oh, they're just doing all that. They're like dancing. There's a reason behind every movement. So, and here's the other thing that this is one of my quotes, is like, but when people see fighting, when they see UFC or when they see boxing, right? People train boxing and it's a set rules and there's a reason they move the way they move. They're not worried about kicks. They're worried about punches. And, like UFC, they're worried about like a lot of stuff, kicks, punches, grappling, wrestling. But, and usually like it's pretty. It looks good.
Right.
It looks like they know what they're doing.
Right.
They trained it. But like fighting, it does not got to be
It's
pretty.
ugly.
It does not got to be
It's
pretty.
never pretty.
It doesn't matter if a move looks like a perfectly executed technique. Like we do that whole So Choi, right? Like, that's not a pretty move. Like, it's not like a perfectly straight punch where your guard's up and everything. Like you're stepping forward and you clock somebody like this. That's not pretty, but you can
what
knock
that
the
looks like?
crap out of
That
somebody.
looks like people fighting like this.
Right.
That's exactly what it looks
That's
like.
exactly what it looks like. But do you want to get caught with a punch like that?
No.
And sure, it may be easier to guard if that's the first thing you throw, but you set it up and you come in, you, like I said, you knock somebody like that. Like it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be effective
Well, you know what?
if it lands.
And shout out to Coach Mike Beato. So the one thing I really respect about Coach Mike knows how to use his kung fu.
Has
And
do
you
this.
see
Right.
that it's very effective. And you go, man, that's hard to deal with.
Right.
How do I deal with something like that?
Yeah.
Now, the chances of you meeting a person who is as skilled as Mike on a street fight, they're probably slim,
Right.
but you could.
You could.
And you know, and so
Or even like I said,
I sincerely believe that is a growing percentage as time goes on.
yeah. And some people are just like did we say this earlier? But it might not have been on the podcast. But you have people out there who are just, physical, like in stature. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't work out all the time, but maybe they're just built that way, and they're violent.
I was gonna say maybe they're just aggressive and violent. They don't even have to be big.
Right. Like you can train, you can train a long time, but like there's one thing he says you can't teach ruthlessness.
no,
And there's people out there that are ruthless.
Yes.
With no training.
yeah.
So,
If you're ruthless, you're dangerous.
yeah.
You're dangerous without being ruthless, but ruthless people they don't care.
Right. Right.
They want to see you in pain. They don't care if you die. They don't care if you got a broke. They are
Yeah,
ruthless.
they don't care if you can throw a perfect spinning hook kick.
Right. Right.
So,
And there are some people out there. And here's the thing that what happens to a lot of martial artists, like particularly more so the traditional martial arts than modern. Modern kind of get used to that hard sparring, so they're kind of used to seeing some of that violence. But like people on, we use the street term. What we don't prepare for is traditional martial arts. We're not prepared for the violence that we're gonna account for.
yeah.
A truly
There's-
violent criminal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? I don't watch a lot of UFC, so this is slightly, I guess, skewed. But there is a difference, even in that, even in a UFC fight where they are beating
They're
the piss
still
out
violent.
of each other. Yeah.
Right.
And
They're not trying to kill each other.
An actual true, what I'm going to say, true violence.
I feel like you'll get a bad
the other
egg in there.
person is going to hurt you.
Right. I feel like you get a bad egg in there. Sometimes you get the people that like to hurt each other. But generally speaking, like
'Cause-
I feel like they're trying to make you tap. They're trying to knock you out, trying to make you tap. It's not like immediately like I'm breaking his bone.
A lot
know
of
what I
those
mean?
guys are like, yeah, we're friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we compete. I want to win. You want to win. But at the end of the day,
One of us
cool.
is gonna win.
Right.
We're cool.
Right.
We're cool. But when you truly meet somebody who is truly ruthless and has no goodwill towards you in general, and there's
Yeah.
no referee, there's nothing to stop all the other variables of
Oh, no.
weapons and other people and whatever else.
Yeah,
That is a
it-
scary situation.
It comes to
Yeah.
that adage. I'm going home tonight.
right.
I don't care if you do or not.
Right.
Yeah.
I am going home.
All martial arts does in general, traditional or modern, no matter which one you're doing, like you said, it hedges your bet. It
yeah.
gives you a greater opportunity to be
make it
able
home.
to get home.
Yeah.
And here's another context: a lot of more modern martial arts have a more sport mentality in some respects. So guess what? When you get in that ring, guess what you're training for? To win.
Yeah.
A lot of more traditional martial arts, they still do sport too. Some of them have self-protection attached to them. Well, guess what? If I'm training for self-protection, I'm training to survive, not win.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Because survival may be, I need to run.
Yeah.
Survival may be, I need to push you down and run.
Here's one more aspect to that. Like, I don't even want to use UFC because, I mean, I can't really speak on it. I mean, I'm not an MMA fighter, but like, take even, okay, something I have experience in, right? One of our tournaments. Like, you get like a 2-minute round, right? Like 3 2-minute rounds.
Yeah, you get 32-minute rounds.
So-
if you win your first 2, you're done. But if you
Right.
got to go to a third,
Best of
Potential
3.
third round, right?
Or
2 minutes.
best of 3.
So that's already 6 minutes,
Right.
Like, a lot of people say, "Oh, I could probably fight 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes." No, you can't.
Right.
Like,
Not
you're
at that
gonna be tired.
intensity.
You're gonna be tired
Let's-
at 30 seconds.
Let's be honest. Most people don't know how long fights really last.
Right. And that's what I was getting at. In a real situation, that fight should be over
It's
like that.
15 like a 15-second fight in
Right.
in a real fight
that's too long.
Right. That's
is
too long.
is a long
That's
fight.
that's too long.
The
That's a
fight
problem.
you should try to end the fight quickly, as fast as possible.
It's not a matter of controlling it or ending it or anything else. If you look at fights over time and literally go back and scan videos and time them and everything else, if you do the research, that's what they fall under.
Right.
It's less than 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And there are a few outside cases, but most fights, they're over by then.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Whether you tried to end it in that quickly or
We
not,
go
whether
into that saying of like, you should be able to end it that fast. But if you aren't able to, you should be able to go a little like more distance. But we're not training to fight 5-minute rounds. You know what I mean? There's the athleticism side of it. Obviously that's going to increase your odds when we talk about hedging your bet.
Oh yeah.
Being in better shape is always a better thing.
Oh, of course.
But we're not training to freaking like, run the clock out.
Right.
Not get like winded.
Pace
Land
yourself.
some punches, pace yourself. No, it's like I'm trying to end this fight quickly and be
Right.
done with it.
Right.
I watched. I'm trying to remember the video. I can't right now, but it was interviewing people who had survived like house break-ins and been in altercations, but it was people that aren't martial artists, people that are just picked off the road.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the guy broke into my house and I happened to be there.
Yeah.
All right, well, the fight ensued. They always talk about, okay, yeah, I thought I fought for an hour.
Yeah.
No, he was in your house for 10 seconds.
Yeah. I got a
And
good
then they're
buddy.
like, I was so exhausted. It was the worst 10 seconds of my life.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is you feel like that.
You feel it. I've got two good friends. I won't name them, but like they got in a fight back in the day. And I wasn't even there, but I know for a fact. It's like, but he talks about it now. He doesn't train or anything, but he's like, yeah, man, we was fighting for like 15 minutes. I'm like, no, you weren't.
Dude, I didn't
you
even
probably
get my
weren't fighting for
toast
a minute.
done.
Yeah. I know for a fact you probably wasn't fighting for more than a minute.
And real quick to bring this up, that's why I like it's so interesting when you hear the, to go back to the Bruce Lee Wong Jack Man fight.
Oh God.
There's an account that says, the fight was over very quickly,
Right.
and then Wong has an account where no, it lasted longer than that,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of hard to know like which account is probably right. It's probably somewhere in the middle.
Let's be realistic. There are like 5 people that saw that fight, right?
Um,
If I remember correctly, there's not even that many.
well, we're gonna have a podcast on this,
But
because
hold on, humor me a second. There are like 25 accounts.
There's too many accounts, right? There's too many accounts, and
At this point, I don't. Nobody has any credibility at this point
Right.
where that
Here's
fight
a
is
cool
concerned.
one. Mayweather had a video. I don't know, someplace they call it the doghouse, I guess. It's like
Never heard of it.
Boxing. I don't know what video I was watching, so I don't know where it's from or anything. Again, it's media. I'm not an expert, but like I was watching this video and it was like a boxing gym, and they go pretty hard in there and they let people settle some differences. Well, there was 2 people that wanted to spar, and
Sound like
one
street beef.
yeah, it's kind of like that, but it was in a boxing setting, right? It's like, and Mayweather was there.
street beefs.
Yeah, street boxing. But like, so they let these 2 guys go at it. One's an upcoming, rising star or whatever. Another one's like a younger kid, you know what I mean? And obviously this guy, he won the fight fairly quick. Like, and here was the rules, right? They let him go till somebody quits or gets knocked out. There's no time. There's no rounds. They get in there and they do the thing, boxing. Right? He won, and then but the guy that guy's got an older brother, and he came back.
It's like my
later.
turn now.
He's like, yeah, you beat a kid. Like it's my turn now. Same rules. Those 2 guys fought for like 30 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. Like that was
At that point, you're
very impressive. Like
Do you remember the first scene of Daredevil, or the first couple of episodes of Daredevil?
Mm-hmm.
So Charlie Cox admitted at some point, he's like, I was not in shape enough. I am actually that tired in that. Because at the end of
You
that,
gotta,
as
like-
he's fighting through the hallway and stuff, look at him. He's like sitting there throwing the TV like,
I mean, you got to live and breathe.
just
Like
walking.
this has to be as normal as walking to go
Oh
that
my
long.
gosh.
Like 30 minutes. That is insane.
no, I guarantee you they were dragging.
Oh yeah, like it kind of like I'm only believing it because it wasn't like it didn't show the 30-minute fight. It clipped, but it said at the end that they had fought. Like it showed the clock because they had a timer going, and it was at like 30 minutes. So I believe it. You know,
and
that is ridiculous.
I'm sure some
I'm
of that
also
was,
betting like 5 minutes of it is just.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I'm sure there's a lot of
there was
basic-
probably like they was going at it hard, nobody get knocked out, and they're both good. They're both skilled. So it's like, I guess they're not getting. They're just doing their thing for like 30 minutes, and
I'm not saying it can't happen. And you're right. Typically
that's two trained boxers too. We're not
Most-
talking about.
people are not in shape enough to even
I'm telling you,
sniff that.
I give the normal person 30 seconds before they're like, like they might not be completely out of the fight yet, but they are feeling it.
Oh yeah.
They're really feeling it. 30
Oh,
seconds.
yeah.
Yeah, no.
Then you're not accounting for you taking physical damage.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get hit,
Getting
that
hit.
affects you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That affects you.
Big time.
That stamina bar.
Oh no, it does. It
Right.
does. You don't know how many times, like when you watch, especially when you go to Baltimore. Joe, you got to go to Baltimore so you can see it.
Yeah.
I watch people spend more energy when they get knocked off of that platform,
To get back
getting
up.
back up there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man,
I
that
could
guy's gonna
imagine
be so tired.
Even getting off the ground is like takes more than you think. You know, in the middle of of battle,
somebody
you fall, you
throws
get back.
you, and you
Right.
gotta.
Right.
you know, you're falling. From this table, I'll say the platform's maybe about this high. It's about
4 feet.
about waist height.
Right.
3-4 feet.
So you got to hop up there. Then if somebody throws you off of it and then they land on you, then you got to get back up, get them off of you.
That's-
Got to get back on there, get back to the line, and then you got to go again.
And I've always wondered. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but like, it's for the crowd's amusement, I'm sure, but it's also just for the, they don't want to give you a big break. Like, usually when you go to the ground or when they break you, the judge he's trying to get you back in the fight as fast as possible.
fast
He's
as possible.
He's like, get back. Like, are you ready? Are you ready? And it's like, but me in my head, I'm trying to kind of.
I need a breath or two.
Taking
to
a
recover.
second, like looking at the judge, is like, give me a second, because they gotta like ask you, like, you're okay, yeah, I'm okay, but
Let me assess. Hold on.
right, like,
Yeah, our job as like depending, and we need to do an episode on lay tie too, because I think a lot of people don't really know what lay tie is. But like
That's full contact for the uninitiated.
yeah, a lay tie is
It's a fight.
basically a raised platform that you spar on. And it can be really dangerous.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some pretty bad injuries on there.
right.
Here's
Here's something that I've not done it, but what I've seen from watching it is that in some sports, they are there to point. It's a point system too. I get that. But here's the thing about it. It's a short round, and I have not seen any fight where somebody runs out the clock. Like I'm not saying people get knocked out in every match. I'm just saying they don't go in there and circle for a minute and a half or 2 minutes. They come out scrapping every time I've seen it. Like, they come out scrapping. I've never seen anybody like really run out the time.
it depends, depending on if, you'll see some boxers where, like, if you got to go 12 rounds.
Feel them.
They're
Oh
gonna
yeah,
use
that's a
those-
different story.
No,
gonna
he's talking
use
about specifically lay tie.
Specifically lay tie.
Oh, lay
like-
tie?
yeah.
No.
I see them come out.
Lay tie,
swinging.
they're coming out swinging because your time limit is so
It's small.
short.
Right.
So short.
Right.
And, like, you're like, man, I got to come out
Right.
now. Like, I
Right.
got to. So it does kind of simulate more of a
Fight.
real life.
Yeah, get
confrontation.
this person off of me.
I
Do
got
some
to go,
damage.
go.
Right.
And so that's why it's so fast paced in that respect.
Yeah.
But
Right.
well, I don't know. We may have to do a part 2 to this one too, because this is a rabbit hole, man.
It
'cause-
is. Yeah.
Well, you brought it up, and I'm going. This is
I
going
wish
to take a
we
while.
could just go back in time sometimes, and really see it for ourselves.
sit down in the time chip.
Train with them.
I challenge you. Go online, and you can still find video. You can actually find footage of 2 masters
Kids.
sparring
Homework.
with each other who do kung fu, and I will tell you, it looks like total boo boo.
Right.
And you'd be surprised. You go,
Right.
what? That's a master? Yes, it looks horrible
Yeah.
from quote unquote what you would think a kung fu master would look like.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
I think it looks like he's either tired or winning and doesn't really care.
it looks bad. It really does.
Right.
And you go, well, that just looks like a regular fight, but you got to realize, like, kung fu is just, you're just training a different way, but fighting is fighting.
Fighting's fighting.
Again, only so many ways you can attack.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting.
Doesn't
when
always
you
gotta
see
be
that.
pretty.
No. And trust me, they do not look pretty. You can find videos.
Yeah.
And in fact, you'll be like, I might be able to take that guy. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? And you're not trying to be you're not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm serious. Like, go look it up. Go look on YouTube and look up old footage of Kung Fu Master, and you'll see some horrible technique.
It's like, how often did they spar, or how did they spar? And, like, their forms may look phenomenal.
Right.
So just what they're training for, how they're training.
Yeah, what are you training for?
Even, here's the last point I'll make about one thing is, like, your mental state when it comes to stuff like even physical, right? Even physical, we teach to relax in the fight and get used to it,
right,
so you don't get gassed, right? And like, let me give one example, like running, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jogging. When I first started jogging some years back in the military, like, the furthest I ever made it was like 7 miles, and
wow.
I thought that was like my cap, like that was all I had because I pushed it. I made it to 7, and like, I'm not really in great shape right now, but like, if I train for it, it's like, that's nothing. It's not all physical. It's mostly up here.
Mm-hmm.
And even your workouts, right? Like, you say you do like 50 push-ups and you do 50 sit-ups, 50 squats, and it's like 50 lunges, and you stretch, you call it a day. Whereas, like, if you're in the right mindset, that's your warm-up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's like step 1 out of 5,
mm-hmm,
or out of 10,
mm-hmm.
So I feel like to go back to our topic, it's like, I wonder what the mindset was like back then. Like they say samurais, they trained sun up, sun down, right? And I'm sure a lot of it was physical. So, like, and I see a lot of, like, when I trained over at the other gym, there was a guy who came in there for his first time,
mm-hmm.
and I've only been in there a few times, but I've been training,
mm-hmm.
but he keeps going back to, like, oh, I did shoulders today. I lift weights, but like, I'm new to this, and he's using it as an excuse because he's freaking tired.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all these like punch out drills. You sit on your butt and you punch up, and
mm-hmm.
And it's like if you're in a scrap, nobody cares if you just lifted shoulders or did such and such, but like, you're the one putting this obstacle in front of you. I'm tired, so I'm making up excuses. It's like, okay, I just did shoulders, now I got to spar. Oh crap! Like, no, it's like easy day. Like, it's all mental. You know what I mean? It's mental.
And what I would think that sometimes we don't do for our students is we don't make them mentally tough enough.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love David Guy. And anytime you think you're at your limit, you still got like 40% left in the tank. At least.
Right.
At least.
Right.
So
in our society, and especially in America, we don't really have to go past our limit.
No, not at all. And we're in peaceful times.
Right. Exactly.
Like, most of us.
So we get to the point where it's like, well, 80% is all I need.
Go jog a quarter of a mile,
and that becomes
gassed, and okay, well, I did it, and then not work out again for another month.
There you go.
There
you go. So, but anyway,
yeah.
So guys, thank you for listening to Martial Mentality. Please like, share, subscribe, turn on that noti bell so you know when we post new episodes. And thank you for listening, guys. You have anything else before we sign out?
Go train.
Ooh.
I'm waiting to see the comments.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Stay off the comment section and go train. Go train for yourself.
No, he's lying. Comment first, then go train.
Go train. Well, that was what I was going to say is go train before giving your 2 cents. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I want it first. They're here.
Yeah, they're going to give it regardless. Yeah.
Listen, we want to definitely hear from you. We are excited to get comments. And I will definitely tell you this. I actually do try to respond to all the comments that we have. I really do. Whether they be positive or they're negative.
Yep.
It's a free country.
That's
you have
right.
freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech.
That's right. So this is Martial Mentality signing off. Peace.